real quick while you're
Sure.
so we're going to be looking at Tesla again, the volume bursts.
Yeah, we'll go back to the volume burst and just continue on our discussion.
All right, you can share your
Let me
screen.
share my screen here, and we're going to come back to this price action analysis. And I think we were looking yesterday at the regular trading hours. And let's come back here. Let it load for a second. And what we were discussing was how to, different ways of analyzing stock volume and stock trading intraday. All right. So going beyond just looking at the aggregated volume, what if we broke it down further for analysis and we could categorize it? We looked at it yesterday from analyzing it different trading periods, different trading sessions. We talked about, there's a pre-market, there's an opening cross, regular trading hours, closing cross, after hours trading, and so forth. And then this table here looks at the intraday volume. And within the intraday volume, we start breaking it down further and looking for certain unique events or unique type of trades that stick out, and then we take those and isolate them for further analysis. And the ones we were looking at were volume spikes, where there's an unusual burst in volume trading in a very short period of time. Okay, so that's where we stopped at yesterday. And here we have yesterday's volume burst for Tesla. There weren't that many in this table. So there was only two on the sell side. I'll start out with those, but we might have to find a different example just to get a little bit of better perspective of these volume bursts. But let's start out with these two. So yesterday we didn't detect any large volume bursts from the buy side. Okay, and those are the way we tag a buy side volume burst is if a large trading volume was detected on a uptick from the previous VWAP. So we're comparing VWAP to VWAP, and if the VWAP shifted higher, then we call that a buy volume burst. If the VWAP shifted lower on a large trading volume spike, we tag it as a sell burst, downtick or uptick. So let's look at these two yesterday. 0 on the buy side. There were 2 yesterday for a total of $363 million worth of stock for VWAP price of 254.05. Okay, so this is where it closed, 250.264. How does that compare with the daily average? So we could see here in the last 30 days, we saw average 17 buy bursts versus 11 sell bursts. So yesterday was a very light day as far as, big volume bursts. We saw an average $2.6 billion worth of buy bursts versus $1.6 billion worth of sell bursts on daily average. So you could see here yesterday, very light, 363 million, not a lot. And these are the VWAP buy bursts versus sell bursts in the last 30 days. This is the average impact. So the average impact is when we see these buy bursts or sell bursts, a buy burst, how much movement do we get in the VWAP from the 1 minute to the next, right? So if it's a big movement, that means there's not a lot of liquidity and that buy burst really had to reach. If it's a little movement, that could indicate that there's a lot of liquidity and the buy burst could just be a part of a match where there's a sitting, there's a buyer out there, and if he detects a lot of liquidity on the sell side, he'll just grab it because he doesn't want to miss the opportunity somebody else will. All right, so he's just looking for that big liquidity to appear without giving his hand away, and he'll just grab it as soon as he sees it, or the other way around. So on average, we see about 42 cents impact on the buy side, 48 cents on the sell side. So almost even, a little bit less liquid on the sell side. Yesterday, on average, down 52 cents. Okay. So not much going on as far as that, very light. But let's just take a look at the bursts themselves. So two of them happened, one at 3:30, one at 3:46. The one at 3:46 has this little indicator that a plus sign, which means there's something else happened that may have explained away this sell burst, which would make sense, nothing unusual. So when we see the buy burst or sell burst, our next question is, well, can we explain why it happened? And there could be different reasons. There could be, because a news event happened. It could have been part of a bigger program trade. It could have been, a hedge because a big option trade occurred and there needs to be a delta hedge. So you want to know, if we detect it, what else can I link it to? How do I connect it to other data to explain it away? And that's very important, because you want that information, because that will allow you to do a more thorough and accurate analysis, right? So it's kind of like when you look at volatility, you see unusual volatility and you're like, oh, well, that's an earnings. You want to connect that and link that event, because when you go to analyze it, you want to go look for other earnings and the volatility on the earnings, right? So it's important to try to find the potential reason why we see that burst. So let's look at the 3:30 one first, and then we'll go to the other one. So at 3:30, so here it is at 3:30, we see that there is a $174 million worth of stock that traded, which, if we hover over it, that's 2.5 times the average large trade or volume, to 2.5 times the average volume for that minute. So that's why we tagged it as a burst. And during that minute, right at 3:30, we see it traded for a VWAP price of $255.14. So the VWAP is the volume weighted average price. So in other words, if 170 million dollars worth traded at 255 and 4 million traded at 254, well, the 255 price will get more weight because more shares traded there. Okay, so that's the volume weighted average price. The price is weighted by the volume that traded at that price. So there we got 255.14. So what do we think may have happened there? We got this big volume burst. What do we think may have happened? So now we want to look at the price action. And right before the 3:30 VWAP, let's take a look at the 3:29 VWAP. So 3:29, we had $95 million worth of stock trade at 255.76. Well, if the stock goes from 255.76 to 255.14, right, on a downtick, we traded lower, then we tag it at, you can do it as downtick, burst, or we say a sell burst, because sellers had to step lower to push that price down. Okay, so that's why we tag it as a sell burst over here. Now, we try to scan the markets for anything that may have happened around that time that could potentially, be connected or linked to the sell burst. And over here to the right, events or other trade bursts, and we didn't detect anything. Doesn't mean there's not something could be out there that we didn't detect, because we're looking through the information that we have. There could always be stuff out there we don't see. Okay, so keep that in mind. We don't know if somebody tweeted a rumor or somebody upgrade or downgrade. We're not connected to everything that way, but there are certain things that we do look for, like other volume bursts in the market. If we detect like maybe some kind of event like the Fed meeting or somebody announcing, or so there's certain things we try to look for, but of course there's always imperfect information. Nobody has every bit of information out there that's floating around. So we didn't detect anything in that minute. But let's go to the next one. Okay, so the next one, we have two of them, is at 346, and that this one there was something here. Okay, there was a plus, so I'm going to click on that, and it is at 346 over here, and you can see $189 million worth of stock traded for VWAP price 253.06. How does that compare to the previous VWAP 253.48, down 42 cents? So you can see here that's a sell burst, traded 2.9 times the average volume for this time period. Okay, so there was one thing we did detect here, that in the S&P 500 there were other bursts at nearly the same time. Okay, so when we hover over, and remember Tesla's in the S&P 500 as well, but we saw 8 stocks in the S&P 500 that experienced all similar, sell volume bursts for a total of $215 million. So we want to take a look at that. Maybe it's somehow like related to some program trade or some basket trade, and maybe that explains it away. Okay, so let me click on this for more details, and then let me see if I don't know if that's working. Hold on, that might be a bug. I think this. All right, I got to look into that. Unless I'm not. Oh, there you go. You have to click right on top of this. Actually, I was clicking in the box. You got to click on this. All right, so here's the information then. 8 stocks had a sell burst in the same period. So we brought them up just to take a look at what's going on here. All right, so here you have the symbols, you have the names. You can see here Tesla, obviously that one happened at 346, and then we have Ralph Lauren, energy stock. So nothing here indicates, that these particular stocks are related. This could just be a coincidence. It is coming up closer to the end of the day, but if we saw maybe Tesla and some other car manufacturer, other car makers, or Tesla and maybe some other like large cap technology stocks or something, maybe that would indicate like a program trade in the sector or industry. But at least just eyeballing it, it doesn't look to me like anything very related here to each other. So I don't know if that a program trade will explain this away necessarily. I'm going to close it. But you could see here, Tesla, $189 million worth of stock traded. These are like 5 million. And these, keep in mind, these are smaller stocks. So a sell burst in, say, Ralph Lauren is much different than one in Tesla that's whatever $1 trillion or whatever Tesla is right now. So let me close that.
Hey, D.
Yeah.
We did just have a question pop in from Chris. He says, just got here, Will, so forgive me if it was covered already. Does MC capture the results of the bursts? Meaning, for example, for every Tesla sell burst, the stock dropped 24 cents. I guess, is there any record of when a sell burst happens, or a buy burst, what the results are, if that's captured anyway? I guess that's a question, Chris.
I mean, it's a good question, but at this point, we don't have that type of analysis. And this is a fairly new feature, by the way, that we started to push out, and I believe you could download this. And the idea here, it's a different way of analyzing stuff. Right now, we're getting into more granular analysis, and I like your thinking, because that's how I would think. Okay, now let me isolate it, put together the data, and analyze it further. So the answer that we don't have a tool like that right now. We're just here presenting the data and starting to connect it, so you guys have the opportunity to view it and see what happened. Perform your own analysis, download it. But our tool right now doesn't go that deep into the analysis by, I guess, connecting all the related data and then creating summary statistics and so forth.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. And part of it is, like you see here, that you can't treat every burst as equal. And that's what I'm kind of trying to point out here. Not every burst is equal, just like not every volatility event in the market is equal, right? Like a volatility event in an earnings doesn't equal a volatility event in an announcement is different than volatility event in whatever. It could be a different government, release. So that it's important to stress that when we look at it, just aggregating all of them, is not sufficient. You still want to go and categorize it further. Okay, because a lot of times it will be, you can explain some of these away. There are only two here today, so I would say I can't really explain these two away as far as like connecting it to other data necessarily. I'd have to go look further, but a lot of times you will be able to explain it away as well. But yeah, thank you for the question. So we left off this last cell burst, and what I want to do is maybe talk about price phase. So this is another event, but this event, instead of looking at a big liquidity event like a volume burst, this is looking at a low liquidity event with a big price impact. Okay, so now we're going in the reverse. Say, well, for the given price move, there wasn't a lot of liquidity in that minute. Okay, so imagine like if a car dealership, all of a sudden for the prices to move up, they'd have to have like thousands of buyers and to move up 10%, but all of a sudden, you have 5 buyers and it moves up 10%. Well, what happened? That's not, that needs to be analyzed differently. So let's talk about those tomorrow, because we only have a couple minutes left. I don't want to start it and just end it like that. But we'll continue on price fades tomorrow, and then we'll start tying things together. All right.
All right. Nice job, D. We did have a question from a new user who came on today, Ping Pang. He's asking, quick question for you guys. I've just signed up for MC. Is there any way to see FTDs from specific manipulated stock, to see FTD data in ETFs?
What? What?
FTD. I don't know if he means failed to deliver. I'm not exactly sure what that acronym means.
Yeah. From a, and then how did he tie to fail to deliver stocks that there's a let me see.
Yes, D is referring to fail to deliver.
Yeah, so we have a
Rob says threshold lists under stock screener. It shows lists of companies that had FTD.
Yeah, so these are the threshold list stocks that are on the threshold list, mean that there's failed to delivers already, right? That I believe that's what the sees stock list of stocks with significant failed to deliver positions. So these here are showing us the stocks on that list. So there's 48 of them over here. I'm not going to get too much into them right now because I only have like a minute left here. We could discuss this as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a day. We'll do the failed to deliver list. How it's actually set
and
up.
we should explain to people what that even means. Fail to
Yeah.
deliver, because it has to do with shorting stock. And when you short stock, you have to locate the stock, meaning you can't just sell short a stock. You have to own the stock before you sell it, which means you have to borrow the stock from somebody who owns it, right? So let's get into that tomorrow to explain how that works.
All right, awesome.
Yep.
Thanks so much, D. Thanks everyone for joining. Great job, buddy.
All right, thanks everyone for joining. Stay safe out there. Have a great trading day, and hope to see you guys tomorrow.
Trade in peace, chameleons. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.